The alarm didn't go off. Damon Wright's eyes snapped open at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes later than usual, and his heart immediately started racing. 13 minutes in a house with 6 children was the difference between organized chaos and complete disaster. He threw off the thin comforter and swung his legs out of bed, his feet hitting the cold hardwood floor of the small bedroom. The house was already stirring. He could hear footsteps upstairs, the creak of floorboards, muffled voices that would soon escalate into full volume. Damon pulled on a faded Howard University t-shirt and sweatpants, running a hand over his close-cropped hair as he moved quickly down the narrow hallway. The walls were covered with crayon drawings, school photos in mismatched frames, and a large calendar marked with color-coded schedules that looked like a military operation. Because that's exactly what it was. "Dad!" The voice came from upstairs, high-pitched and urgent. "Kayla won't get out of the bathroom." "I'm almost done." Another voice, defensive and muffled, through the door. Damon took the stairs 2 at a time. 6 children, ages ranging from 7-year-old twins to his oldest at 12, all sharing one bathroom. It was a daily negotiation that required the patience of a saint and the strategic thinking of a general. He'd been both once. Staff Sergeant Damon Wright, Army medic, 2 tours overseas. Now he was just Dad, custodian at Mercy Heights Medical Center, trying to get 6 kids ready for school on a custodian's salary. "Kayla, you've got 2 minutes, Damon said, knocking on the bathroom door. "Then it's Micah's turn. But I'm not done with my hair. 2 minutes or I'm doing your hair, and you know how that turns out." The door flew open. Kayla, his 12-year-old, stood there with her dark brown hair half straightened, half still in its natural coily texture. She looked at him with those same deep-set brown eyes he saw in the mirror every morning, eyes that held too much responsibility for someone so young. "Fine," she muttered, grabbing her flat iron and hair products before retreating to the room she shared with her 2 younger sisters. "If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." Micah, 10 years old and rail thin, slipped past Damon into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. Downstairs, something crashed. Damon closed his eyes for just a second, took a breath, then headed back down. In the kitchen, 7-year-old twins Isaiah and Elijah stood frozen next to a shattered cereal bowl. Milk pooled across the worn linoleum floor, Cheerios floating like tiny life rafts. Both boys had identical expressions of guilt on their round brown faces. "It was an accident," Isaiah said quickly. "He pushed me," Elijah added, pointing at his brother. "Did not." "Did, too. Boys." Damon's voice was quiet but firm. Both twins went silent. "Get the paper towels. Clean it up together. No blame, just teamwork." They nodded and scrambled to the pantry. Damon grabbed the mop from the corner and helped them clean up, his mind already running through the morning checklist. Lunches to pack. He'd done that last night, thank God. Permission slips to sign for Kayla's field trip. Money for Isaiah's class photo. $8 he didn't really have, but would find somewhere. Micah's inhaler needed refilling, but the pharmacy wouldn't open until 9, and he had to be at work by 8:30. He'd figure it out. He always did. By 7:15, all 6 children were assembled in the living room for inspection. It was a habit from his military days that had translated surprisingly well into single fatherhood. Kayla stood at the end, hair now neatly flat-ironed, wearing jeans and a purple hoodie. Next to her was Micah, his backpack already on, his brown eyes serious behind his glasses. Then came 9-year-old Zara, her natural hair pulled into 2 perfect puffs that he'd spent 20 minutes on last night, her smile gap-toothed and bright. 8-year-old Aisha stood next to her older sister, her darker brown skin glowing in the morning light streaming through the window, her school uniform pressed and neat. Finally, the twins, Isaiah and Elijah, in matching blue shirts because that was the only way to keep them from fighting over who got which shirt. 6 beautiful brown faces, 6 different personalities, 6 reasons he got up every single morning no matter how tired he was. Lunches? Damon asked. Check, they chorused. Homework? Check. Permission slips? Kayla held hers up. Damon signed it quickly, his signature barely legible. Everybody use the bathroom? The twins looked at each other. Neither moved. Go. Now. They ran. Damon looked at the clock. 7:23. They needed to leave in 7 minutes to make it to the bus stop on time. His shift started at 8:30, and he still needed to drop Aisha at her special needs program across town first. The twins thundered back downstairs. Okay, Damon said, clapping his hands once. Let's move. They piled out of the small house like a well-coordinated unit. The morning air was cool, the November sun just beginning to warm the street. Their house sat at the end of a row of similar modest homes, small yards, chain-link fences, cars that had seen better days parked in driveways. This was Riverside, the forgotten neighborhood on the south side of the city where rent was cheap and dreams were expensive. But it was home. The neighbors looked out for each other. Mrs. Chen next door watched the kids sometimes when Damon worked late. Mr. Jackson across the street had fixed their porch railing for free. Pastor Williams from the church down the block had organized a coat drive last winter when Damon couldn't afford new jackets for all 6 kids. Community mattered here. At the bus stop, Damon knelt down to eye level with each child, his ritual every morning. Kayla, what are you responsible for? Setting a good example, she said, rolling her eyes but smiling slightly. Micah, keeping my inhaler with me. Zara, being kind to everyone. Aisha, he spoke slowly, gently. Aisha had autism and processed things differently than her siblings. Use my words when I need help, she said carefully, her dark eyes meeting his. Isaiah, Elijah, stay together, they said in unison. Damon stood and looked at all of them. I love you. Have a good day. Make good choices. Love you too, Dad, they chorused. The bus rumbled up, brakes hissing. Kayla took Aisha's hand. Micah made sure the twins got on safely. Zara waved from the window. Then they were gone, and Damon was alone on the corner. He checked his phone. 5 missed calls from work. His stomach dropped. He called back as he walked quickly to his battered 2008 Honda Accord parked in front of the house. Damon, where are you? His supervisor's voice was tight. On my way. I had to get the kids to... We needed you here an hour ago. The East Wing flooded. It's a disaster. Damon's jaw tightened. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Make it 15. The line went dead. Damon sat in his car for exactly 10 seconds, forehead against the steering wheel, and let himself feel the weight of it. The exhaustion. The constant scramble. The knowledge that he was one emergency away from everything falling apart. Then he lifted his head, started the engine, and drove. Mercy Heights Medical Center sat on the edge of the business district, a sprawling complex of glass and steel that served the city's wealthy elite. Damon parked in the employee lot in the back, where the pavement was cracked and the lines were faded, and grabbed his work vest from the passenger seat. The flooding in the East Wing was worse than he'd expected. Water had backed up from a burst pipe on the 4th floor, cascading down through the ceiling tiles and pooling across the hallways. Damon spent the next 3 hours mopping, setting up industrial fans and coordinating with maintenance to get the water shut off. By the time his lunch break came at 2 in the afternoon, his back ached and his uniform was soaked. He sat on a bench outside the employee entrance, eating a peanut butter sandwich he'd made for himself at 5 that morning, and checked his phone. 3 texts from Kayla. Micah forgot his inhaler. Called the pharmacy. They said you need to come sign for the refill. Dad? Dad, are you there? Damon typed back quickly. I'll handle it. How's Aisha? Fine. She had a good day. Mrs. Chen picked her up. Thanks, baby girl. I'll be home by 6. He finished his sandwich and closed his eyes for just a moment, letting the cool November air wash over his face. Excuse me. The voice was soft, hesitant, female. Damon opened his eyes. A black woman stood a few feet away, backlit by the afternoon sun. For a moment, he couldn't see her face clearly. Then she stepped into the shade, and he saw everything. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten. Late 30s, with rich dark brown skin that seemed to glow even in the shadows, high cheekbones and full lips pressed into a thin line. Her hair was straightened and pulled back into a sleek ponytail. She wore a tailored gray suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and her heels clicked against the concrete as she shifted her weight. But it was her eyes that caught him. Hazel brown and red-rimmed, like she'd been crying, or trying very hard not to. "Can I help you?" Damon asked, standing quickly. The woman looked at him, then past him, then back at him. Her hands were clasped in front of her, fingers twisted together so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her voice cracked. She stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I don't know why I'm here." Damon glanced around. They were alone in this section of the building. The employee entrance was rarely used during the day. "Are you looking for the main entrance? It's around front." "No." She shook her head quickly. "I know where I am. I can't go in there." "Are you hurt? Do you need a doctor?" "No." Another shake of her head. "I need—" She trailed off, and Damon saw her throat work as she swallowed hard. Tears welled in her eyes, and she looked away quickly, blinking them back. Damon's instincts, honed from years of military medicine and single fatherhood, kicked in. This woman was in crisis. He didn't know what kind, but he recognized the signs. The trembling hands, the shallow breathing, the way she looked like she might bolt at any second. "Ma'am," he said gently, keeping his distance. "My name is Damon. I work here. Whatever's going on, you're safe, okay?" She looked at him again, and something in her expression shifted. Desperation mixed with exhaustion mixed with something that looked like surrender. "I'm Simone," she whispered, "Simone Laurent." The name meant nothing to Damon. He just nodded. "Okay, Simone, what do you need?" For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, she said, "I need someone to tell me it's going to be okay, even if it's a lie." Damon's heart broke a little. He'd heard those words before, in different ways, from soldiers bleeding out in the sand, from his oldest daughter the night her mother left, from himself in the bathroom mirror after his wife walked away from 6 children without looking back. "Come sit down," he said, gesturing to the bench. Simone hesitated, then moved forward. She sat carefully, perched on the edge like she might need to run. Damon sat next to her, leaving space between them. "I won't ask you what's wrong," Damon said quietly, "but I will tell you that whatever it is, you're still breathing. That means there's still time to make it better." Simone let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You don't understand." "You're right, I don't. But I know what it feels like to think you're drowning." She turned to look at him fully for the first time. Her hazel eyes searched his face like she was trying to decide if he was real. "Who are you?" she asked. "A custodian with 6 kids and not enough hours in the day," Damon said honestly. "A guy who's been where you are. Maybe not exactly, but close enough." 6 kids, Simone repeated, and something painful flickered across her face. "That must be nice." "It's chaos," Damon said, smiling slightly. "Beautiful, exhausting, wonderful chaos. They drive me crazy every single day, and I wouldn't trade them for anything." Simone's face crumpled. She turned away quickly, pressing her hand over her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. Damon didn't move. He just sat there, present but not intrusive, the way he'd learned to do with his kids when they were hurting. After a long moment, Simone whispered, "I can't have children." The words hung in the air between them. "I'm sorry," Damon said quietly. "That must be incredibly painful." "You have no idea." Her voice was raw. "Do you know what it's like to be told you're broken? Worthless? That your only value as a woman is tied to something your body can't do?" Damon's jaw tightened. Who told you that? Everyone. Simone wiped at her tears with shaking hands. My ex-husband. My family. Society. Take your pick. She laughed bitterly. I built an empire. I run a pharmaceutical company worth $800 million. I employ over 3,000 people. I've revolutionized drug accessibility in underserved communities. But none of that matters because I can't give my father a grandchild or my ex-husband the heir he wanted. Damon sat with that for a moment. Then he said, Your worth isn't determined by your biology. Try telling that to the world. I'm telling it to you. Simone turned to look at him again, and this time there was something different in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or hope. Why are you being kind to me? She asked. You don't even know me. Because someone was kind to me once when I needed it, Damon said, and because I'd want someone to do the same for my daughters if they were sitting on a bench crying. Simone's expression softened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Simone said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, Please, just hold me. Damon went still. I know it's strange, Simone continued, her voice breaking. I know you don't know me, but I need someone to hold me like I matter. Just for a minute. Please. Damon looked at this woman, this powerful stranger who'd built an empire but couldn't find someone to hold her when she fell apart, and he understood something fundamental about loneliness. Okay, he said softly. He shifted closer, and Simone collapsed against him, her forehead pressed against his shoulder, her body shaking with silent sobs. Damon wrapped his arms around her carefully, the way he would hold one of his daughters, and let her cry. She smelled like expensive perfume and desperation. Her suit jacket was soft against his rough work vest. And for those few minutes, Damon Wright, custodian and single father of 6, held Simone Laurent, CEO and woman who had everything except what she needed most. When she finally pulled away, her makeup was smudged and her eyes were swollen, but something in her face had eased. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome. Simone stood, straightening her jacket with shaking hands. I should go. Will you be okay? She looked at him for a long moment. I don't know, but I feel like I might be. Eventually. Damon stood too. If you ever need to talk, I'm here most days. Usually eating lunch on this bench around 2. Simone smiled, small and sad. Why would you offer that to a stranger? Because you're not a stranger anymore. You're Simone, and Simone deserves to have someone in her corner. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time she was smiling. You're a good man, Damon. I'm just a man trying to do right. Simone nodded. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the concrete until she disappeared around the corner of the building. Damon sat back down on the bench and stared at his hands. They were rough and scarred, the hands of someone who'd spent years holding things together, holding wounds closed, holding children safe, holding strangers while they broke apart. He didn't know who Simone Laurent really was. He didn't know what had brought her to that bench or what darkness she was walking back into. But he knew he'd see her again. Something told him this wasn't over. Damon didn't see Simone again for 3 days. He went back to his routine. Wake up, get 6 kids ready, survive the morning chaos, work his shift mopping floors and fixing broken things, come home exhausted, help with homework, make dinner, do bedtime rituals, collapse into bed, repeat. On Thursday evening, he was in the kitchen teaching Zara how to make spaghetti when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Damon Wright? The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. Yes, who's this? My name is Patricia Moss. I'm calling on behalf of Ms. Simone Laurent. Damon's hand tightened on the phone. Is she okay? There was a pause. She's managing. She asked me to contact you. She'd like to meet with you tomorrow evening. if you're available." "Why?" She didn't say, but she was quite insistent. Damon looked at his calendar hanging on the wall, color-coded and chaotic. Friday night. Kayla had debate practice until 6. The twins had soccer. Micah had a doctor's appointment for his asthma. Aisha needed... "Mr. Wright?" "I have 6 kids," Damon said. "Friday night is complicated." Ms. Laurent anticipated that. "She's arranged for a child care service to come to your home. Professional, background checked, highly recommended, no cost to you." Damon frowned. "That's not necessary." She insisted. "The meeting would be at 7 p.m. at her office downtown. A car will pick you up at 6:30. "I don't need a car. I can drive." "Mr. Wright," Patricia's voice softened slightly. "Ms. Laurent rarely asks for anything from anyone. She's asking for this. Please." Damon closed his eyes. He thought about the woman on the bench, broken and desperate, asking to be held. He thought about the way she'd looked at him like he was the first person in a long time to see her as human. "Okay," he said. 7 p.m. "Thank you. The car will be there at 6:30 sharp." The line went dead. Zara tugged on his shirt. "Dad, the water's boiling over." Damon turned back to the stove, his mind already spinning with questions he couldn't answer. Friday evening came too quickly. The child care service arrived at exactly 6 p.m. 2 women, both middle-aged and kind-faced, with credentials and references that Damon checked twice. They introduced themselves to each child, asked about allergies and routines, and settled into the living room like they'd been there before. Kayla pulled Damon aside. "Who are these people?" "Someone I helped is trying to return the favor." "Someone rich?" Damon looked at his too perceptive 12-year-old daughter. "Yeah, someone rich." "Are you in trouble?" "No, baby girl. I'm just going to a meeting." "You're wearing your good shirt." Damon looked down at the button-up he'd ironed himself, the nicest thing he owned. "It's a professional meeting." Kayla crossed her arms, looking so much like her mother it hurt. "You never go to professional meetings." "Kayla!" "Just be careful, Dad. Rich people don't usually help people like us without wanting something." She was right, and they both knew it. But Damon kissed her forehead anyway. "I'll be home by 9. You're in charge." At 6:30, a black town car pulled up outside. The driver, an older black man in a suit, got out and opened the back door. Damon climbed in, feeling completely out of place on leather seats that probably cost more than his monthly salary. The drive downtown took 20 minutes. The car pulled up outside a sleek glass building with Laurent Pharmaceuticals etched into the stone above the entrance. Damon stared up at it, understanding, clicking into place. Simone Laurent wasn't just wealthy. She was powerful. The driver opened his door. "Ms. Laurent is expecting you on the 42nd floor." Damon stepped into a lobby that looked like something out of a magazine. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, a receptionist who smiled at him like she'd been told he was coming. "Mr. Wright, please take the executive elevator on the right. It will bring you directly to Ms. Laurent's office." The elevator was silent and fast. When the doors opened, Damon stepped into a space that took his breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. The office was massive, tastefully decorated with a desk that looked like it cost more than Damon's house, and standing by the window, silhouetted against the dying light, was Simone. She turned when she heard the elevator. She wore black slacks and a cream-colored blouse, her hair down in soft curls around her shoulders. She looked different than she had on the bench. Composed, powerful, in control. But her eyes were the same, haunted and hopeful all at once. "Damon," she said softly, "thank you for coming. You didn't have to send a car or childcare." "I know, but I wanted to. Consider it a thank you for Monday." "You don't owe me anything." "I disagree." They stood there, the width of the office between them, until Simone gestured to a sitting area near the window. "Please, sit." Damon sat in a chair that was more comfortable than his bed. Simone sat across from him, her hands folded in her lap. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to listen without interrupting. Can you do that?" Damon nodded. Simone took a breath. 3 days ago, I was standing on the roof of this building, trying to decide whether or not to jump. Damon went very still. I'd just come from a board meeting where my company's investors told me I needed to step down. Not because I'm bad at my job, I've tripled our profits in 5 years, but because I'm unmarried, childless, and not the right image for a family-oriented pharmaceutical company. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. My ex-husband remarried last month. His new wife is pregnant. My father called to tell me I'm an embarrassment to the family name. And my doctor confirmed that my last round of IVF failed. That was attempt number 7. Simone met his eyes. I built this company from nothing, Damon. I poured everything I had into it. And it's not enough. It will never be enough because I can't do the one thing society says makes me valuable as a woman. Simone. Let me finish. Her voice cracked. I was going to jump. I had my shoes off. I was standing at the edge. And then I thought about something my mother used to say before she died. She said, "When you can't find a reason to stay, find someone who needs you to." Tears slipped down her cheeks. So I came downstairs. I walked outside, and I saw you sitting on that bench, and I thought, maybe there's one person in this world who would care if I disappeared. Simone. Damon's voice was rough. A lot of people would care. Would they? Or would they care about what I represent? The company, the money, the image. She leaned forward. You held me like I was a person, Damon. Not a CEO. Not a failure. Just a person who needed to be held. Do you know how rare that is? Damon didn't know what to say. Simone wiped her tears and straightened her spine. I want to make you a proposition. What kind of proposition? I need someone in my life who sees me as human. Someone who isn't intimidated by my wealth or my position. Someone who reminds me why living matters. She paused. And you need help. Financial help, practical help. 6 kids on a custodian's salary can't be easy. Damon's jaw tightened. I don't take charity. It's not charity. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. Simone pulled out a folder from the table beside her and handed it to him. This is a contract. You would work for me as a personal consultant. Your job would be to meet with me twice a week, talk, listen, remind me what real life looks like outside of boardrooms and quarterly reports. Damon opened the folder. The salary listed made his heart stop. It was more than double what he made now. Benefits included. Health insurance for all 6 kids. Education stipends. This is too much, he said. It's what you're worth. You don't even know me. Simone leaned back. I know you stopped for a stranger. I know you held someone who was breaking apart. I know you have 6 children you're raising alone, and you're still kind despite how hard your life must be. That tells me everything I need to know. Damon stared at the contract. His mind raced through everything this could mean. Better health care for Micah's asthma. A college fund for Kayla. Less stress, more time with his kids. Stability. But his daughter's words echoed in his head. Rich people don't usually help people like us without wanting something. What do you really want from me? Damon asked quietly. Simone met his eyes. I want to believe life is worth living. And I think being around you and your family might remind me of that. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Please, Damon, I'm asking for help. Let me help you while you help me. Damon looked at this powerful woman who'd built an empire but couldn't find a single person to hold her hand. He thought about his 6 kids, about the medication he couldn't always afford, about the college applications Kayla would start filling out in a few years, about the future he wanted to give them but couldn't quite reach. And he thought about the way Simone had looked on that bench, desperate and alone and convinced she didn't matter. "Okay," he said, "but we do this my way. No more cars picking me up. No more expensive gestures. You want to know what real life looks like? You come to my world, meet my kids, eat at my table, see how regular people live." Simone blinked, clearly not expecting that. "You want me to come to your house?" "You said you want someone to remind you what matters. That's where it happens. Not in offices or fancy restaurants, in small kitchens and crowded living rooms and bedtime stories." For the first time since he'd arrived, Simone smiled. It was small and uncertain, but real. "Okay, your way." Damon stood and extended his hand. Simone took it, and they shook. Neither of them knew it yet, but that handshake would change both of their lives forever. Simone Laurent arrived at Damon's house on Sunday afternoon at exactly 3 o'clock. She sat in her Mercedes in front of the small house for a full 5 minutes before turning off the engine. The neighborhood was nothing like hers. No gated entrances, no manicured lawns, no security cameras on every corner. Just a row of modest homes with chain link, fences, children's toys scattered in yards, and cars that had clearly seen better decades. The house itself was painted a faded yellow with white trim. The porch had a slight sag to it. A deflated basketball sat in the driveway next to a pink bicycle with training wheels. Through the front window she could see movement, shadows of people living their lives. Simone gripped the steering wheel and reminded herself to breathe. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. She'd stood in front of hostile boards and defended her position. She'd built a company from the ground up in an industry that didn't want her. But walking up to Damon Wright's front door terrified her. Before she could talk herself out of it, the front door opened. Damon stepped out onto the porch, wearing jeans and a gray Henley that stretched across his broad shoulders. He looked different than he had at the hospital or in her office, more relaxed, more himself. He smiled when he saw her. "You going to sit in that car all day, or are you coming in?" Simone forced herself to unbuckle and step out. She'd dressed down for this, dark jeans, a simple white blouse, flats instead of heels. But she still felt overdressed. "Sorry," she said, walking up the cracked concrete path. "I was just preparing myself. It's 6 kids, not a firing squad. 6 kids sounds more terrifying." Damon laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "Fair point. Come on, they're waiting." Inside, the house smelled like vanilla and something baking. The living room was small and crowded with mismatched furniture, a worn couch, 2 armchairs that didn't match, a coffee table covered in coloring books and crayons. The walls were covered in children's artwork, school photos, and a large calendar that looked like a military operation chart. It was chaotic and cluttered and somehow incredibly warm. 6 pairs of eyes turned to stare at Simone. They were arranged on the couch and chairs like a panel of judges. The oldest girl, tall and serious with her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, sat in the center. Next to her was a thin boy with glasses. Then 3 more children of varying ages, and finally 2 identical boys who looked like they were plotting something. "Everyone," Damon said, his hand resting lightly on Simone's back in a gesture that felt protective. "This is Ms. Simone Laurent. Simone, these are my kids." He pointed to each one. "That's Kayla, she's 12. Micah is 10. Zara is 9. Aisha is 8, and the troublemakers at the end are Isaiah and Elijah. They're 7 and identical, so good luck telling them apart." "I'm Isaiah," one of the twins said. "No, you're not," the other one shot back. Damon sighed. "See what I deal with?" Simone smiled nervously. "It's nice to meet all of you." Silence. Kayla crossed her arms. "Dad says you're rich." "Kayla," Damon's voice held a warning. "It's okay," Simone said quickly. "Yes, I am. I run a pharmaceutical company." "Why are you here?" Kayla's tone wasn't hostile, just direct, protective. Simone looked at Damon, who nodded slightly. "Your call," his expression said. Simone took a breath. "Because your father was kind to me when I needed it. and I'd like to get to know your family better. Are you going to try to be our mom? This from Zara, her voice small and uncertain. Simone's heart clenched. No, sweetheart. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I'm just trying to be a friend. We don't need friends, Kayla said flatly. We have each other. Kayla. Damon's voice was firmer now. But Simone shook her head. She's right to be protective. You're lucky to have a sister who looks out for you. Something flickered in Kayla's expression. Not quite acceptance, but acknowledgement. Aisha stood up suddenly from her spot on the couch. She walked directly to Simone and stared up at her with intense dark eyes. Then, without warning, she reached out and touched Simone's hand. Soft, Aisha said quietly. Simone looked down at the little girl. Thank you. Your hair is beautiful. Aisha smiled, then retreated back to her spot. That's high praise, Damon said softly. Aisha doesn't usually touch new people. Micah pushed his glasses up. Dad says you're going to have dinner with us. If that's okay with everyone. The twins looked at each other, communicating in that silent way twins do, then nodded in unison. What are we having? Simone asked. Spaghetti, Zara announced. Dad's teaching me how to make the sauce. Can I help? All 6 children looked at Damon. He shrugged. Kitchen's this way. The kitchen was small, barely enough room for 3 people comfortably. With Damon, Simone, Zara, and suddenly all 6 children crowding in, it was packed tight. Simone found herself at the stove next to Zara, who explained very seriously how to add the seasonings to the tomato sauce. Damon moved around the cramped space with practiced efficiency, pulling out plates, setting the table in the adjoining dining area, refereeing small arguments. No, Elijah, you can't have dessert before dinner. But Isaiah said, Isaiah doesn't make the rules. Simone watched the chaos unfold around her, and something strange happened. The tightness in her chest that had been there for months started to ease. These children weren't perfect. They bickered and pushed boundaries and made messes. But they loved each other fiercely, and that love filled every corner of this small house. Ms. Simone. Zara tugged on her sleeve. You're supposed to stir it. Simone looked down. The sauce was starting to stick. She stirred quickly. Sorry, I got distracted. By what? By how nice this feels? Zara tilted her head, studying her. Do you have a family? The question was innocent, but it hit like a punch. Not really. Not anymore. Why not? Zara, Damon said gently. That's personal. It's okay. Simone looked down at the 9-year-old. My family didn't think I was good enough because I couldn't have children, so they stopped talking to me. Zara's eyes went wide. That's mean. Yeah, Simone agreed, her voice thick. It was. Well, Zara said firmly, Dad says family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to love you, so maybe you can find a new family. Simone had to turn away and pretend to check the garlic bread in the oven so no one would see her tears. Dinner was loud and chaotic. The small dining table barely fit everyone, chairs crammed together, elbows bumping. Simone sat between Aisha and Micah, directly across from Damon. The spaghetti was simple but good. The children talked over each other, telling stories from their week. Kayla mentioned her debate tournament. Micah talked about the science project he was building. The twins reenacted an entire soccer game with enthusiastic hand gestures that nearly knocked over water glasses. Damon refereed it all with patient authority, making sure everyone got turns to talk, reminding people to use inside voices, cutting up Aisha's spaghetti into smaller pieces without her having to ask. Simone watched him and felt something shift in her chest. This man, this humble custodian with 6 children and barely enough money to make ends meet, was richer than she could ever be. Because he had this. Purpose, love, family, everything she'd spent her whole life trying to buy and couldn't. Miss Simone, Isaiah was looking at her curiously. Why are you crying? Simona touched her cheek. She hadn't realized tears were falling. Sorry, sometimes happy things make people cry. Are you happy? Elijah asked. Simone looked around the table at 6 curious faces, at the small kitchen with its mismatched plates and the calendar on the wall and the sound of children's laughter, and she said honestly, "Yes, I think I am." After dinner, Kayla stood and started clearing plates. Simone automatically stood to help. "You don't have to do that," Kayla said, but her tone was less hostile than before. "I want to," Simone said. "I ate the food. I should help clean up." In the kitchen, as they rinsed dishes side by side, Kayla said quietly, "My mom left when I was 9. Simone went still. She said 6 kids was too much, that she didn't sign up for this life. Kayla's voice was flat, carefully controlled. "Dad never talks about her. He just stepped up and became everything we needed." She turned to look at Simone directly. "So, when people show up trying to get close to him, I get protective, because he deserves someone who won't leave when things get hard." Simone met the 12-year-old's eyes. "I understand, and I'm not here to hurt your family, Kayla. I promise." "Everyone promises, at first." "You're right." Simone dried a plate slowly. "But I can tell you this. I know what it feels like to be abandoned by people who are supposed to love you. I would never do that to someone else." Kayla studied her for a long moment. Then she handed Simone another dish. "Dad's birthday is next month. He never celebrates it because he's too busy taking care of us. Maybe you could help me plan something." It was an olive branch, tentative and small. "I'd like that," Simone said softly. "If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one." After the dishes were done, Damon put on a movie for the kids. They piled onto the couch and floor, a tangle of limbs and laughter. Simone found herself squeezed between Aisha and Zara, both girls leaning against her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Halfway through the movie, Aisha's head dropped onto Simone's shoulder. The little girl had fallen asleep, her breathing soft and even. Simone froze, afraid to move and disturb her. Damon, sitting in the armchair nearby, caught her eye and smiled. "She trusts you. That's rare." "She barely knows me." Kids know things adults forget. They can tell when someone's safe. Simone looked down at the sleeping child, at her peaceful face and the way her small hand had curled around Simone's arm, and felt something crack open in her chest. This was what she'd been missing. Not the perfect Instagram family, not the carefully staged moments. Just this, the weight of a child's trust, the chaos of real life, the mess and noise and overwhelming beauty of being needed. When the movie ended, Damon carried Aisha upstairs. The other children filtered up to their rooms one by one. Kayla was last, pausing to say goodnight to Simone with something that almost looked like warmth in her eyes. Then it was just Damon and Simone, sitting in the quiet living room. "Thank you for today," Simone said. "I know it wasn't easy, bringing a stranger into your home." "You're not a stranger anymore." Damon leaned back in his chair. "And the kids liked you, even Kayla, though she'll never admit it. She's protecting you. I respect that. She learned it from watching me protect them." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Simone said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you really agree to this arrangement? You could have said no. You didn't owe me anything." Damon was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "Because I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly, but close enough. When my wife left, I thought I was drowning. 6 kids, no money, no support system. I wanted to quit every single day for a year." He looked at her. "But then, one morning, Kayla made breakfast for her siblings without me asking, and Micah started reading bedtime stories to the twins, and I realized they were watching me, learning how to survive from how I survived. So I kept going, not because I was strong, but because they needed me to be." His eyes held hers. You needed someone to tell you that you matter, that your life has value beyond what other people say it should be. So I'm telling you, you matter, Simone. Not because of your company or your money, because you're a person who deserves to be seen and valued for who you are. Simone's vision blurred with tears. I don't know how to do this, how to be around people without my armor on. You just did it, for 4 hours, with 6 kids who don't care about your armor. They're different. No. Damon's voice was gentle. You're different here. You let yourself be real. Simone wiped her eyes. I want to come back, if that's okay. You're always welcome here. Something passed between them in that moment, something unspoken but significant. An understanding, a connection, the beginning of something neither could name yet. When Simone left that night, driving back to her empty penthouse with its $1,000,000 view, she realized she was already counting the days until she could return. Over the next 3 weeks, Simone became a regular presence in the Wright household. She came on Sunday afternoons for family dinner, then Wednesdays after work to help with homework, then Friday evenings for movie night. Each visit, the children warmed to her more. The twins started competing for who could sit next to her. Zara asked her to braid her hair. Micah showed her his science projects. Even Kayla started seeking her out, asking questions about college and careers and what it was like to be a woman in business. But it was Aisha who claimed her most completely. The 8-year-old, who rarely spoke and struggled with new people, attached herself to Simone with quiet determination. She'd take Simone's hand and lead her around the house, showing her drawings and favorite toys. She'd climb into Simone's lap during movies without asking permission. She'd stand at the window on days Simone wasn't expected to visit, waiting. She's never done this with anyone, Damon told Simone one evening as they washed dishes together, the children upstairs getting ready for bed. Not even the babysitters, not even my sister when she visits. Why me? Simone asked, drying a plate. Damon was quiet for a moment. I think she recognizes something in you. Aisha processes the world differently than other people. She sees things we miss. And I think she sees that you understand what it feels like to be different, to not quite fit. Simone's throat tightened. I do understand that. They worked in comfortable silence until Damon said, Can I ask you something personal? Yes. What happened with your family? The real story? Simone set down the dish towel. She'd known this conversation would come eventually. She just hadn't expected it to hurt this much to think about. I'm the only child of Jean-Paul and Marguerite Laurent, she said quietly. My father built Laurent Pharmaceuticals from nothing. My mother came from old money, the kind of family that traces their lineage back centuries and thinks that matters. She leaned against the counter. I was groomed from birth to take over the company and marry well. I did both. I got my MBA at Harvard, joined the company at 23, and married Alexandre Beaumont when I was 25. He came from the right family, had the right pedigree. On paper, it was perfect. But it wasn't. No. Simone's voice hardened. Alexandre wanted a trophy wife who would produce heirs and stay quiet. But I wasn't built that way. I revolutionized our distribution model, cut drug costs for underserved communities, tripled our profits. I made the company matter beyond just making money. She looked down at her hands. But I couldn't give him children. We tried for 5 years. IVF, fertility treatments, specialists from around the world. Nothing worked. The doctors said it was unexplained infertility. Everything looked fine on paper, but my body just wouldn't cooperate. I'm sorry, Damon said softly. Alexandra divorced me 3 years ago. He said I'd failed in my duty as a wife. My father agreed. My mother had passed away by then, and without her buffer, my father made it clear. No grandchildren meant I was a disappointment to the family legacy. Simone's laugh was bitter. So I threw myself into the company, worked 18-hour days, built an empire, proved I was valuable in every way except the one that apparently mattered most. And then the board started pressuring me to step down because being a divorced, childless woman made me unsuitable as the face of a family healthcare company. She met Damon's eyes. That's when I ended up on that roof, because I'd given everything I had and it still wasn't enough. I'd done everything right and I was still fundamentally wrong. Damon moved closer, not touching but present. There's nothing wrong with you. Tell that to the world. I'm telling it to you, and for what it's worth, those 6 kids upstairs think you're pretty amazing. Simone's eyes filled with tears. They're healing something in me I didn't know was broken. You're healing something in them, too. They've been so focused on losing their mother that they forgot what it feels like to let someone new in. You're teaching them it's okay to love again. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither was quite ready to examine. Upstairs, footsteps thundered. "Dad!" Kayla's voice called down. "Elijah won't brush his teeth." "Yes, I will. You're holding a toy, not a toothbrush." Damon sighed, but he was smiling. Duty calls. Simone followed him upstairs and found herself pulled into the bedtime routine. She helped Zara pick out clothes for the next day. She listened to Micah explain his latest theory about black holes. She refereed the twins' argument about which superhero would win in a fight. And then Aisha appeared in the doorway of her room, holding a worn, stuffed elephant. "Story?" she asked, looking at Simone. "I don't know any stories, sweetheart." "Make one up," Aisha said simply, and crawled into bed. Simone sat on the edge of the bed, acutely aware of Damon watching from the doorway. She looked at the little girl's expectant face and took a breath. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a woman who thought she'd lost everything that mattered. She told a story about a queen who ruled a vast kingdom but felt empty inside, about how she wandered into a forest and found a family of bears who taught her that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, about being present, about choosing each other every day." By the end, Aisha was asleep, her small hand wrapped around Simone's. Simone carefully extracted herself and stood. Damon was still in the doorway, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "It was the truth, just dressed up like a fairy tale." They stood in the hallway, close enough that Simone could feel the warmth radiating from him. She'd never been this physically aware of another person before. The way he moved, the timbre of his voice, the steadiness in his dark eyes. "Damon," she whispered, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of how much I need this. Need them. Need—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Need what?" His voice was gentle, patient. "You," she admitted. "I'm scared of how much I need you." Damon reached out and took her hand. His palm was rough and warm against hers, grounding her. "I need you too, and that terrifies me because I haven't let myself need anyone since my wife left. I built walls to protect my kids, to protect myself, and you walked right through them like they were made of paper." "What do we do?" Simone asked. "I don't know, but I know I don't want to run from it." They stood there, hands clasped, in a hallway covered with children's artwork, and let themselves feel the weight of what was growing between them. The call came at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Simone was in her penthouse reviewing quarterly reports when her phone lit up with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her pick up. Simone Laurent. "Ms. Laurent." The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. "My name is Richard Beaumont. I'm Alexander's father." Simone went cold. "What do you want?" "I wanted to inform you, as a courtesy, that Alexander's wife gave birth to a son this morning. Henri Alexander Beaumont. 8 pounds, healthy, perfect." Each word was a calculated knife. Simone gripped the phone so hard her hand ached. "Congratulations to Alexandre," she managed. "Yes, well, I'm calling because Alexandre has decided to contest the divorce settlement. Specifically the 40% stake in Laurent Pharmaceuticals that was awarded to you." Simone stood up, her heart pounding. That was finalized 3 years ago. New information has come to light. Alexandra's lawyers believe you concealed assets during the divorce proceedings. If true, the settlement could be voided, and your shares returned to family control. That's a lie. Perhaps, but it will take years to prove in court, during which time the board may decide your ongoing legal troubles make you unsuitable for leadership. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Simone understood immediately. This wasn't about money. This was about destroying her, taking everything she'd built and grinding it to dust. Tell Alexandra if he wants a war, he'll get one. I rather hoped you'd say that. Makes it more interesting. Richard's voice was cold. Oh, and one more thing. We've had you followed. Imagine my surprise to discover you've been spending time with a custodian and his children. Does the board know you're playing house with the help? Simone's blood turned to ice. You stay away from them. Or what? You have no leverage, Simone. No family, no children, no real power beyond what we allow you to have. But that man and those children? They could be made very uncomfortable very quickly. Code violations on that little house he rents, CPS investigations into his fitness as a parent, immigration questions about his status. He's a citizen and a veteran. Doesn't matter. The process is the punishment. He'd be drowning in legal fees he can't afford, fighting accusations he can't disprove, watching his children be taken away one by one while he's helpless to stop it. Simone couldn't breathe. What do you want? Step down from Laurent Pharmaceuticals, transfer your shares to Alexandre, disappear quietly, and we'll leave your little family alone. The line went dead. Simone stood in her empty penthouse, shaking with rage and terror. They'd found her weak spot. For the first time in her life, she had something she couldn't bear to lose, and they knew it. She grabbed her keys and drove to Damon's house without thinking. It was nearly midnight when she knocked on his door. She knew she shouldn't be there, knew he'd be asleep, knew the children would be in bed. But she couldn't go back to that empty apartment. Couldn't face the darkness alone. The door opened. Damon stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, eyes heavy with sleep but sharpening when he saw her face. Simone, what's wrong? Can I come in? He stepped aside immediately. Simone walked into the dark living room and stood there, trembling. Damon closed the door and turned on a lamp, then moved to her. Talk to me. They're going to destroy you, Simone whispered. Alexandra's family. They're going to come after you and the kids to get to me. What are you talking about? She told him everything. The phone call, the threats, the ultimatum. When she finished, Damon was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Let them try. You don't understand. They have unlimited resources. They'll bury you in legal problems you can't fight. So, you're going to give up everything you've built? Let them win? To protect your children. Yes, absolutely. Damon took her shoulders gently, making her look at him. That's not your decision to make. They're innocent. They don't deserve. Neither do you. His voice was firm. You don't deserve to be threatened or manipulated or forced to give up the company you built, and we don't need you to sacrifice yourself to keep us safe. You don't know what they're capable of, and you don't know what I'm capable of. Damon's eyes were steady. I've fought wars, Simone, real ones with bullets and blood. Some rich asshole threatening legal action doesn't scare me. It should. Why? Because he has money? Because he has lawyers? Damon shook his head. I have something he doesn't. I have the truth. I have 6 kids who love me. I have a community that has my back. And I have you. Simone's eyes filled with tears. I can't let you fight my battles. This isn't just your battle anymore. The moment they threatened my family, they made it mine. Damon. He pulled her into his arms and Simone collapsed against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and sure, and felt some of her terror ease. We're going to fight this together, Damon said quietly. You're not alone anymore. Do you hear me? You're not alone. Simone nodded against his chest, tears soaking into his shirt. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other in the dark living room, while upstairs 6 children slept peacefully, unaware that their world was about to be tested. When Simone finally pulled back, Damon's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. Their eyes met, and something shifted, the air between them charged with everything they'd been carefully not saying. "Simone," Damon whispered. "Yes? I'm going to kiss you now, unless you tell me not to." Simone's heart hammered. "Don't stop." Damon leaned down and their lips met. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, both of them testing this new territory. Then Simone's hands fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, and the kiss deepened. It was everything. Relief and desire and comfort and heat all tangled together. Damon's hands slid into her hair. Simone made a small sound in the back of her throat that made him groan. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon rested his forehead against hers. "That was overdue," Simone finished. He laughed softly. "Yeah." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring it. When they finally separated, Simone said, "I should go. The kids. Don't wake up before 6. Damon's voice was rough. "Stay. Just stay. Sleep on the couch. I just want to know you're safe." Simone nodded. "Okay." Damon grabbed a blanket and pillow from the closet. He settled her on the couch, and when he moved to leave, she caught his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not letting me face this alone." "Never," he said. "Not anymore." He kissed her forehead and went upstairs. Simone lay in the dark, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like laundry detergent and home, and for the first time since the phone call felt like maybe they could survive this. She didn't know that upstairs, Kayla had heard everything. Alexandra's lawyers attacked. CPS showed up. The media swarmed. But Kayla had recorded Richard's threats. Simone released it, oiked publicly, destroying Alexandra's credibility. The community rallied, neighbors testified, veterans vouched for Damon, patients praised Simone's drug programs. The board fired Alexandra's allies instead. 6 months later, Simone stood in Damon's kitchen wearing his ring. Aisha was a flower girl. The twins carried rings. Kayla cried happy tears. "You saved me," Simone whispered. "We saved each other," Damon replied. Finally, the Barren CEO found her family, 6 children who chose her, and a man who loved her completely. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story, in the